Good morning. It is Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, and you are waking up with Wesley. I'm Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams, and as we take a look at the weather today, I'm sure if you've been on social media over the last 24 hours, you might have been hearing some buzz about a swirl out in the Atlantic, the tropics, the National Hurricane Center. What's going on with that? Well, what you might have missed if you didn't know is that the National Hurricane Center began monitoring an area in the Atlantic for development. Now, before you start to get your heart racing, it's already gone. They are no longer tracking an area for development. But it got me thinking, and maybe it got some of you thinking as well, how often do storms form before hurricane season? In fact, is that even possible? So, let's take a look at a question. It's Tuesday. Let's do some Tuesday trivia for you. Can systems, tropical systems, form before the official start of hurricane season on June 1st? So your answer choices are yes and no. Pretty easy 50-50 shot. All right. Your guesses are locked in, and the big reveal is yeah. They can. Now, if you are a first-time resident of the Gulf Coast, then maybe that is a surprise to you. But for us who've been here for years, yeah, we know that this is a thing that actually happens more often than not. In recent years, at least, you can get storms to form before the official start of hurricane season, which is on June 1st. Let's take a look at those recent years. So this is kind of an explanation, a further deep dive into the answer to that question. And this goes all the way back to 2014. You're looking at storms that have formed between January 1st and May 31st, somewhere in the Gulf, Caribbean, or Atlantic. And there you go, the year-by-year list. Last year, we actually didn't get any. So that's a first because we actually typically have seen them more often than not. In 2023, we did have a system form in January. So forget about March, what we're talking about right now. There was a system that formed in January. The thing is, that one was pretty tricky because it was actually only discovered later in the year 2023 after meteorologists forensically looked at some past dated maps. So they actually looked in the past and found that, hey, there was actually a system back in January. I don't think they found that out until the summer of 2023. So a little tricky there, a little technicality, but because it was found months after it existed, it actually didn't get a name. So they named it unnamed. So very weird year, 2023. Anyway, 2022, you didn't get one. In 2021, though, that began a stretch of years, or perhaps concluded a stretch of years in which we saw those pre-named or pre-season named storms. We had a May system in 2021 named Anna, and in Arthur of 2020, Bertha of 2020 as well. Both of those were May systems. In 2019, there was Andrea. In 2018, there was Alberto in May. In 2017, there was Arlene in April, so that's almost a March system right there. In 2016, that was a named system in January. They actually saw it when it happened in January and named it Alex. And then you had Bonnie in May of 2016. And then, of course, as you know, names repeat every 6 years. So there was a 2015 named Anna as well. And it was in May. Of course, the names repeat, but they don't repeat if the name gets retired. So usually A names typically don't get retired. In order for a name to be retired, it needs to be a storm that produced devastation, massive death, massive devastation. And A name storms usually aren't the systems that early in the year. You don't have the kind of big systems like that. If you are, a long-term Gulf Coast resident, you might remember an A-name system that did quite a wallop on the region. The name Andrew rings a bell from the 90s. But with Andrew, that didn't even form until later in the year. So that was a really interesting year because Andrew didn't form until certainly the summer. It was not a spring system. And with Andrew, it either formed in the summer or late summer, early fall. And it was a Category 5 system that hit Florida and caused massive devastation and historic devastation there. So that name was retired, and you don't see the name Andrew anymore. It was taken off the list of names. Of course, as we get closer to hurricane season, we'll talk more about the upcoming season, the list of names to be used for the year 2025, so on and so forth. But I just wanted to join the conversation that has been taking place with the National Hurricane Center mentioning the potential for development out in the Atlantic. If you check their website today, it's already gone. So you blinked, you missed it. It was really only a thing for about a day. At this point in time, no new systems expected over the next 7 days based off of the National Hurricane Center's outlook. But if we zoom in, we can show you the zone that was being tracked for development. It is an area, low area out in the Atlantic, and this is a look at it on satellite as of Tuesday morning. It really doesn't even have much of a swirl that's visibly noticed on the visible satellite. But if you look closely enough, you might be able to detect, if I draw it about like this, that's kind of your swirl and your circulation with that particular low out in the Atlantic. And there's actually an even larger low that is a part of the cold front that brought us the severe storms on Saturday. Well, now that one is sitting out about here. It's swirling about right there, and it's got a cold front with it that is located about right there. That type of system is much more powerful than the little swirl that's hanging out here over the Atlantic waters. And this big upper level low is going to be moving eastward with its front, and it's actually going to pick up this little swirl and kick it up to the north. We'll show you what that looks like with the future cast. So there's this swirl in the Atlantic, circled it in silver there, and you got the big upper low off to the west. And watch how, remember, with the low pressure, the circulation is counterclockwise. So you have the circulation going like this with the wind circulation. And so you have these winds that are steering that swirl up toward the north. The little swirl is being steered northward around the giant low swirl, if you will. So you can watch how that just kind of gets kicked up to the north as you go to Wednesday and then Thursday, and then it's basically gone. All of this is, of course, moving away from the U.S. mainland, so obviously there's no threat to our local area or to anyone on our continent from anything involving the tropics or anything like that. Now, we do want to briefly focus on our local forecast. There's a few things happening this week. Of course, we have the season finale of winter, the season premiere of fall, and both of those seasons are confused on what their jobs are. Winter, come on, you got one job. You're supposed to make it cold. Spring, come on, dude. You're supposed to make it warm. What's going on here? Can you see that we'll be warm on the final day of winter and cool on the first day of spring? And in order to get to that cool down, we do have to go through a 30% chance for rain Wednesday night. Our futurecast doesn't really look like much in regards to the Wednesday night rain, but there you can see maybe a few little hit or miss spotty showers might pass through the area at some point Wednesday night into Thursday morning. By the time the sun comes up Thursday morning, the rain's long gone off to our east and it will be cooler. Here's a more zoomed out view of the futurecast. And you can see along our coast that there will be the potential for some of those clouds and showers to come through. The more interesting area to watch will actually be Illinois and Indiana, because that's where some maybe severe storms might try to kick up. You can see them there near Indiana Wednesday evening. And the tail end of this comes down into Alabama and Mississippi. But I don't think, like we just showed you in the zoomed in futurecast, it doesn't really look like it's going to the storm's going to perk up for us, so doesn't really look like much of an issue. That's why the Storm Prediction Center, in their latest outlook, they are calling for a level 2 out of 5 risk of damaging storms in Illinois and Indiana for Wednesday and Wednesday night. And then the tail end of that cuts off to a level 1 in parts of Mississippi. Fortunately for our Mississippi coast, we have no risk for severe weather with the Wednesday night round of showers. But I am a little concerned about our neighbors to the north, especially near Meridian, where they took a hit from a tornado or at least some severe weather earlier this week or this past weekend. And now they're under the gun again for a low probability of some severe weather going into Wednesday night. So hopefully they don't get too affected by that as it moves through. So we're going to pretty much blast through the rest of the forecast as we're running short on time here. I just wanted to show you a beautiful sunrise that we had on this terrific Tuesday. That was the view over Gulfport. And you've got sunny skies, no rain with dry high pressure nearby. And you can see that there's no rain in sight, just a few passing clouds. Our temperatures are going to rise into the 70s today on the Mississippi coast, thinking 72 near Biloxi, 75 near Pascagoula, 78 near Wiggins. But check it out, as we go to tomorrow, the final day of winter, warm 80s showing up. Yeah, winter ending on a warm note. But then, even though we warm up for Wednesday, we get that cold front to move in for Thursday. So how ironic that on the first day of spring, we actually get a cool down. And by the time we get to Friday morning, we're talking cold 30s. Some places could get frosty Friday morning. Maybe if the forecast is wrong by 2 or 3 degrees, you might be near freezing in a few places like Jackson County, George County, parts of Stone County, parts of Hancock County, with mid-30s on the numbers for now. And if those numbers come down just a little bit more, you might want to consider protecting any sensitive plants or vegetation for Friday mornings near freezing temps in a few spots. Now, after Friday, our little early spring cool snap comes to an end, and it looks like a pretty nice start to the first weekend of spring. Saturday, the spring warmth is back in action with temperatures well into the mid or upper 70s, and the rain chance Saturday is slim to none. Now, there is a little bit better rain chance on Sunday, call it 30%, but I do think there will be some breaks and some rain-free hours to get out of that. Your best rain chance, I think, actually begins Sunday night and continues next Monday. And we've got plenty of days ahead to talk more details about that. But I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us here on your Tuesday edition of Waking Up with Wesley. I've been Senior Meteorologist Wesley Williams. I hope that you have